Hi students, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about what happens next for the Roman Republic and how Rome makes the transition from a republic to an empire. We saw in the last video how Rome was able to overcome great odds, and the Romans showed great courage and great determination and great commitment to their state in order to defeat Pyrrhus of Epirus, establish Rome as the dominant power in Italy, that they were able to fight against the Carthaginians in the Punic Wars in these existential conflicts and defeat Carthage and become the leading power in the Western Mediterranean, and then that they were able to expand further. They were able to gain control of Greece, of Syria, of Palestine, and the Middle East, so that by the time we get to around 130, 120 BC, Rome is basically unchallenged as the leading power in the Mediterranean, and that only Egypt remains independent of Roman control in the Mediterranean. So Rome has become exceptionally powerful. The Roman Republic has seen great successes. With these successes, however, come important challenges for the Romans. Now, the basic structure of Roman society was the family farm. In American terms, we might think of this as a homestead. Now, Romans were expected to fight in the Roman army. However, as these conflicts continue, we start to see the Roman Republic outgrowing its institutions. So, as these wars start to become fought further and further afield. So previously you're fighting in Italy for Rome. Now you're fighting for Rome in Palestine and in Syria. You're a long way away from Rome for long stretches of time. How does this affect the ordinary soldier? Well, the ordinary soldier is a farmer. And so you can imagine that it's very difficult for these farms to survive financially if key members of the family are away for such long stretches of time. So you start to see these farms struggling to survive financially. At the same time, because the Roman army is being successful in these campaigns, a lot of new wealth is coming into Rome and into Italy. And part of this wealth is human wealth. That is, prisoners who have been captured in war and who have become slaves. And so you have an increase in cheap labor. That means the wealthiest members of society now have access to more labor. More labor, and it's cheaper labor. And so what you see is that the wealthiest members in Roman society are able to buy up the farms of kind of more middle class or working class Romans who are not able to survive financially because they're fighting in the wars. And instead, this land is being cultivated by slaves. And so you have a situation in which the wealthiest in this society are becoming more wealthy, and those who are kind of in the middle of this society are being disenfranchised by the cheap increase in labor that's happened as a result of these wars. And so you start to see these people feel really disenfranchised by the system. I think we can understand why. They fought in these wars for Rome, they've made Rome successful, and their reward is that they're bankrupt. They have to sell their farms for a cheaper price than market value. They're not able to afford to buy more land in order to make themselves self-sufficient. And so they basically become dependent on the state. Most of them migrate to Rome. They live in Rome, in slums in the city. They're dependent on the state in order to survive. And so you have a movement that says we need to limit the power of the very wealthy in this society, and we need to ensure that land is provided to those who fight in the Roman army, that they receive some kind of pension that will enable them to be financially sustainable. And so first, we see this movement take form under the leadership of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. These are two populist politicians during this period who try and pass these reforms. They try and pass reforms that will give pensions to soldiers in the Roman army, and they try and pass reforms that will give land to, or will limit the amount of land that the very wealthy in society can control. And this movement is seen as a threat by the very wealthy in society. They don't want to see their position in this society change. And so they put all kinds of procedural checks in the way of Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus. Use the system to try and prevent the system from being changed. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus try and work around the system, and they are accused of being terrorists. They're accused of violating the principles of the Roman Republic. And they are assassinated, and so you have the first instance of political violence in Roman history. Rome edging towards civil war. And so what we find as we enter the second half of the first century BC is that now Roman soldiers are more loyal to their generals than they are to the idea of Rome itself. To them, the Roman Republican government is no longer looking after their interests. It's only protecting the interests of this very wealthy upper class. And so they turn to these generals instead to see a series of generals as the people who are most likely to protect their interests. And so this means that increasingly you have conflict between the Roman Republican government, the Senate, which seems to be an obstacle to these changes, and Roman generals like Pompey, Marius, Sulla, and most famously, Julius Caesar. And it's a little bit difficult for us to understand, especially in a modern American context. The idea that you have a general set up against the government, well, the government is obviously the legitimate power. The general is obviously trying to usurp that power. And there were many people in Rome who felt this way, but there were also many people in Rome who felt that the government was increasingly delegitimized by the fact that it was no longer serving the interests of its citizens. It was only serving the interests of a small, very wealthy clientele. And so this means that eventually Julius Caesar is able to take control of the Roman Senate. Julius Caesar takes control of the Roman Republic using his army. A dangerous principle to set. And so when Julius Caesar is assassinated, initially his assassins don't hide. Initially they say, we've overthrown a tyrant. Rome has always stood for tyranny. The Romans got rid of their kings. Julius Caesar was a general who tried to set himself up as a king, and we had to get rid of him. And there are a lot of people in Roman society who agree with this. And it's not until the funeral of Julius Caesar that this perception changes. At the funeral of Julius Caesar, we're told that Mark Antony, Caesar's subordinate, reads Caesar's will aloud. This was part of the funeral ceremonies in ancient Rome. And when he reads it aloud, he reads out several bequests to the Roman people. And we're told that this is a point where the Roman people have a sense that Julius Caesar was actually someone who cared more about their interests than their own government officials do. And so they rise up and they drive the conspirators, the assassins of Caesar, out of the city. And so then there is war between Caesar's followers and the followers of the Republic. Caesar's followers are successful. And then Caesar's two main followers, Mark Antony and Caesar's heir named Octavian, are going to fight another civil war to determine who's going to succeed Caesar. And in the end, Octavian is successful. And he becomes the ruler of Rome. He will take the name Augustus. He will rule for the rest of his life. And so it's during this period when Octavian, we call him Octavian Augustus, when he is ruling Rome, that Rome makes this transition from being a republic to being an empire. Augustus is going to become the first Roman emperor. Again, in a modern American context, we have a sense of the image that we think of when we think of an empire and an emperor is very much shaped by Star Wars, and an empire and an emperor, generally these are seen as tyrants. But for the people of the time, someone like Octavian Augustus was necessary to make the institutions of Rome work. He is seen as someone who brings peace to Rome, who brings an end to the period of civil wars and generals trying to take over the government. And he's someone who provides a pension system for those who serve in the Roman military, which means they are able to be self-sufficient again. Life gets better for lower and middle class Romans, and he is able to clean up the streets of Rome, which had become corrupted by gangs and by violence. And so it's for this reason that we see Rome, the Roman Republic, fall, and we see the Roman Republic replaced by an emperor. And Octavian Augustus is the one who does this. He is able to do this by presenting himself as someone who is necessary to make the institutions of the Republic work. So this is also what's really interesting. The Romans still are really attracted to their system of republican government. They don't want to be seen as being ruled by a king or being ruled by an emperor. But they also recognize that with the growing wealth that's come into Rome as Rome's power has increased, the institutions of the Roman Republic are no longer sufficient for Rome to survive. And so, or the Roman Republic to survive, and for people, for the Roman Republic to bring peace to this society. And so that's why increasingly you need cooperation between the Senate and a leader of the army, who is Augustus. This is the beginnings of having a Roman Empire and a Roman emperor. I hope you've enjoyed this material, and I will see you in the next lecture video.